Roger. Brace for auditory impact. 10 seconds there. 1, 2. Can record on my count. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Roll A. Straight up on A.
We're ready to go into fast time if you are.
Live from the authority of South Florida, The Rich Stevens Show starts now.
Doing a real good show up there. I think we're proving our point, old buddy.
New York attitude, Florida charm. Talk so hot, it's a 4-alarm. Right, smart, unafraid. A double shot of truth on your radio waves. Hey, hey, oh, whoa. Time to crank up your radio. Hey, hey, whoa, whoa. Time for the Rich Stevens Radio Show.
Well, how about that? I'm ready. Are you ready? I'm Rich Stevens. Thanks for being here. I love that song. Really gets me going every morning. Listen, there's some things I want to talk about today, and I don't like to do a lot of political stuff, but this is just too good to pass up because, as usual, the president is sparring with the Democrats. Now, the investigation into the Ukraine flap obviously is going to continue for a while, but the big brouhaha is over a tech. What is brouhaha, by the way? The whole, I can't think of another word. But anyway, he tweeted yesterday morning, congressional Democrats are focused on, I think I could say it, bullshit. He actually typed out the word bullshit on his Twitter. He tweeted it on his Twitter. Instead, that doesn't sound good. Instead of working on substantive issues, he wrote. And it was a little bit past that. He told reporters in the White House that House Intelligence Committee chairman, that funny looking, he looks like an alien, Adam Schiff, couldn't carry Mike Pompeo's blank strap. Now, I assume he meant his jockstrap. And then once again, he called for the whistleblower's identity to be released, saying it should be protected only if, in fact, he's legitimate. And then the Democrats are saying, well, we're doing all the work, we're passing all the bills. Well, sure, the Democrats, they've passed some bills, but completely partisan bills, which reflect no sense of cooperation or compromise. And that's really not the same as actually working on the issues. You see, they want to land haymakers on the president and then expect him to use kid gloves. It doesn't work like that. Every single news outlet I turned on last night and yesterday afternoon are all talking about disrespect, total disrespect for the office. Because the president should never write a word like bullshit. And it was funny because, like I'm saying it, there were some people on CNN and Fox News. NBC didn't touch it. They just used the initials BS. But it was, it's as long as it's in news, it's okay. And it was, quoting somebody in the news. But here's the thing that's so amazing to me. For them to say that it's unbecoming of a president to use this kind of language, and it's total disrespect of the office. At the same time, the left has zero respect, which is another perfect example of yet when it's convenient for them, they have respect. In other words, because the president tweeted all in capital letters bullshit, which means all capital letters meant he was shouting, that's a problem. We have respect for the office, and he shouldn't be using the office to do things like this. But you see, this is where it comes in when it's convenient, or maybe talking out of both sides of their mouth at the same time. The left has shown zero respect for this president since he's been in office, almost 3 years. Think about this for a second. For them to come out, Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff actually said, it's unbecoming of a president. But what about unbecoming as a Democrat? What happened to partisanship where they promised to get things done together? I'm telling you, it's just a convenience. It's like, there's a term, I'm trying to think of it before, and I can't remember what the term is when we were kids. It was like, Oh, it was nah, 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 nah. You know that thing? Well, that's the game that they're playing, whatever game that was called. I think that was called some kind of game. But I remember playing that game when I was 9, 10 years old in 5th and 6th grade. This is not a game. This is our lives. This is our children's future lives. And this is everybody's life here in the United States. And quite frankly, around the world. I think, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, I think it took balls for the President of the United States to write the word bullshit on Twitter. But it's on Twitter. He's not speaking it. And even if he did, who cares? I don't know if you checked out A Few Moments with Rich earlier this morning, the quick video I made for you, but it's truly, I mean, it's not a two-way street. It's like a three-way street. When President Obama was in office, I so many times wanted the president to say on camera, because he didn't use Twitter, I wanted him to say, hey, bro, what's up? I just wanted to hear him say that. I thought that would have been very cool because he's a black guy and meeting another black guy, and that's what they're going to say when the camera's off anyway, so why not do it public? I think that would have made him hipper. But he wouldn't dare do that. So the fact that this president has got the chutzpah to actually type out the word bullshit and then throws up the world is, oh my God, I mean, their heads are not only spinning, but they're like blowing off. To me, it's just amazing. So keep up the good work, Mr. President. I was talking to some people last night at the rehab my mom's staying at, excuse me, some of the nurses, and it was kind of like 70-30, 70 for the president, 30 against, saying that it's not presidential-like for him to use that kind of language. But when somebody writes something in Twitter, even if it's the most powerful man in the world, is that actually him speaking, or is it him typing? It's him typing, but he's typing his own words. So I don't know. Again, I have no problem with it. I think it just once again shows that this is a guy that takes no crap from anyone and is driving a bulldozer down the road. And if you get in the way, you're going to get run over. If you're on his side, you sit up. There's seats for everybody up on top, and you'll be fine. But that's my thoughts. Of course, I welcome your thoughts anytime. 305-707-7878, 305-707-7878. And that's my personal cell. So you can text and I'll reply, or you can leave a voicemail, okay? Obviously, I can't answer it now while I'm doing this, but just wanted to know what you think about the whole Trump bullshit thing. I just like saying bullshit over and over again. I mean, we use those words in everyday life. I challenge you to find a person that's never used that word. So do you really believe that the president, I don't care which president you pick, didn't use that word behind closed doors? So what's the difference if he says it in front of closed doors or outside of closed doors, I should say? I mean, these are the kind of things that, I hear and I see and I watch, and it's amazing to me. All right, the other story is Bernie Sanders had a big scare. Here's a guy that wants to be president. He had chest pains a week ago, and then it got worse yesterday, so he went to the hospital. Turns out he had a bad blockage. 2 stents have had to be implanted, and now he's going to be off the campaign trail for a little bit longer. But he's already using this, this situation as an opportunity to push his Medicare for All plan. First of all, would you want a president, somebody in charge of the nation that is of that age? I mean, he's 78. That's not that old, but he's 78. And you get chest pains and you continue on the campaign trail and you don't get it checked out right away? That's really not good judgment. I mean, it is what it is, but I'm just saying, I don't think that's, it's just not a good way to run your own life, let alone the country's life. Not that he has a chance in hell of getting elected. The Dallas cop who shot and killed her neighbor, Amber Geiger, was found guilty of murder for shooting her black neighbor, Botham Jean, last year. And as I said yesterday, Geiger walked up to Jean's apartment, found the door unlocked. Geiger claims that she thought that the apartment was hers, and Jean was an intruder. Jean was unarmed. He was eating ice cream sitting on the couch when he was fatally shot. And the shooting, of course, is another case that highlighted white police officers using fatal force against unarmed black people in the United States. So Geiger, as I told you, was convicted of murder, which is a rare conviction in a high-profile police shooting. And we now know she's been sentenced to 10 years in prison. Now, she's going to be eligible for parole in 5 years, but it's just, it's one of those, there's so many things that don't make sense in this story. And as I said yesterday on the show, a cop has such an intensive job. And so many people think, it's kind of, I got to tell you, it's like people in radio. People tell me all the time, oh, you only work a few hours, must be nice. Yeah, but there's a lot that goes into a show that you don't hear or see about behind the scenes. Just like a cop, no day is ever an average day. I mean, once in a while, a cop could go on patrol and have no issues, God willingly. But the mission of any police officer, at least the cops that I know, is to, is to get up, get dressed, put on the uniform, the badge, and a gun, go to work, and the mission is to make sure he comes home or she comes home and everything's okay and everybody's safe. I can't imagine that this Amber Geiger, came home from work and thought that this guy was in her apartment and she shot him. But it's possible because we don't know her state of mind when she went home that night. I mean, if you walked into somebody's house, excuse me, I hope I'm not getting sick. If you walked into somebody's house and they're sitting on your couch with their feet up watching television and eating ice cream, wouldn't it make sense to think that, wait a minute, something's not right here? But again, we don't know. We'll never know exactly what happened other than what she told in court, that she thought it was her apartment. She thought it was an intruder. But an intruder eating ice cream, sitting on the couch watching TV? Come on. I don't know. It's one of those, it's a controversial story that is going to set a precedence for other things. And as I said yesterday, the problem with something like this is continues on the list of cops that are going to say, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm not even going to go there. And that's scary. And there's so many anti-police people in this nation that keeps building and getting worse and worse and worse. And that too, my friend, is very scary. Because God forbid you pick up the phone. And this happened to me once. Can you imagine needing police or medical attention and dialing 911 and it rings and it rings and it rings and it rings like 10 times and nobody answers? You hang up and dial again and it's busy and you're in a life and death situation? This happened to me. I experienced this. And apparently the day that I needed help, this goes back a few years, there was something wrong with the 911 call center, which they have backups in case one center goes down. There's a backup. There's, I believe, 3 backups here. But when you call 911 and you expect to get somebody pretty much instantly, and it rings 10 times and nobody answers, and you call and it's busy, then you call again and it rings 12 times, I got to tell you, that'll get your heart racing. It's pretty scary, really scary. I'll tell you another scary thing. Another person that's running for president is Elizabeth Warren, the Democrat from Massachusetts. I can't stand this woman. But she's targeting Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook. And he said publicly today, or yesterday rather, that she should lawyer up over her efforts to break up the social media company if she gets elected president. And then Warren fires back and says, well, that's fine, tough guy, see you in court. I mean, what is the matter with people? Why can't we all get along? Everybody's out to get everybody. I got a friend of mine that thinks Google should be broken up because they're too big. And they're in too much control of so many different things. If you're first to the finish line and you come up with things that somebody else didn't come up with, more power to you. It's like a few years ago when the government wanted to break up Microsoft because Microsoft was hogging everybody's computer with the Windows system. Well, they invented it. Bill Gates wrote that program. He invented it. He improved on it. He made it so that in today's life, I mean, I would be lost without my computer. How about you? So when somebody says we need to break up these companies, I don't agree. If it gets to a point, you see, here's the thing. I'm going to tell you something now that nobody else is going to tell you. And I'm only going to give you the info that I have. Motorola. When you hear that name, what do you think of? Me, I think of cell phones originally, the original cell phones, and police radios. Now, that's what Motorola is all about, right? Well, Motorola spent about $2 billion in 2017, just 2 years ago, on this new AI technology where they're going to be able to track anyone and everyone somehow. All I know is it's AI, which stands for artificial intelligence. So if they're throwing down $2 billion on the table to get this technology where government and police will have more ways to invade your privacy, that's a problem. That's something that I'd want to break up and not, it just makes me uncomfortable. And I have nothing to hide. It's just sometimes, people just go too far. Companies go too far. As far as Google, if you think about it, Google is, to me, Google's a great company. I only wish I bought stock when my friend told me to buy stock several years ago. There's another controversy. This is now also in the legal world. Harvard University, a federal judge ruled in favor of the school's admission process. You see, back in 2014, there was a group called Students for Fair Admissions. They filed a lawsuit arguing that the university is illegally discriminating against Asian American applicants so they can allow more Black and Hispanic students in. Now, Harvard denies it's being discriminatory, but they do say that they consider race in admissions because they wanted a diverse student body. And now a judge says, I second that. Now, if the ruling is appealed and it makes its way all the way to the Supreme Court, which has obviously a conservative majority, it could impact a decades-old ruling on affirmative action. See, this is the kind of stuff that, you think you think you're getting stuff done, but in reality, you're just taking several steps backwards. And that's a problem. Speaking of Elizabeth Warren, this story is almost too good to pass up on. She has numerous occasions on the campaign trail highlighted her supposed hardships, not only for her, but of women in the workplace. And she claimed that she was fired from a teaching job after she became visibly pregnant. But the senator has been plagued by her own wildly overstated claims of Native American heritage, told a different story about how she lost her teaching job in the past. Now, I'm quoting here. She says, this is Elizabeth Warren. She says, I loved it, and I'd probably still be doing it today, but back in the day before unions, the principal, by the time we got to the end of the first year, I was visibly pregnant. And Warren says, while on the campaign trail in May, and she said some of this yesterday, she said, and the principal did what principals did in those days. They wished you luck, showed you the door, and hired someone else for the job, and they weren't my dream. And funny, because back in April, the Democrats said at Al Sharpton's National Action Network convention, teaching special needs kids is a calling, but I finished out the year visibly pregnant and didn't get invited back. Those were the days. However, during an interview in 2007, Warren recalled leaving her teaching job because she did not have requisite qualifications, which of course is a far cry from claiming to be been canned by a male principal for being pregnant. Now, it's amazing to me. It's so funny. Unless people have selective memory, do they not realize these people that are running for office, and this goes not just this election cycle, but in every election cycle, don't these people realize that they've done something in the past, and in today's new media world, anything and everything could be found and brought up again? In 2007 at UC Berkeley, as part of a series called Conversations with History, Warren was asked about her pursuit of a career helping special needs children. Her answer at the time made no mention of losing her job due to her pregnancy. Instead, she spoke of trying to further her education because she lacked some education courses that had required her to rely on an emergency certificate to teach that first year. While pursuing those courses, she said, she realized, and I'm quoting, "I don't think this is going to work out for me." She and her husband then decided she would stay at home for the time being. And that's it. I mean, does it take... I guess it takes a moron to lie. It's like our heritage, that whole thing. I don't even want to go there now. I'm trying to stay away from political stuff. But some things, think about it. You got to talk about it, because if I don't talk about it, nobody's going to talk about it. I do this show for three reasons. One, to make people happy. Two, to make you think. And three, to make you really think and give you stuff that you won't get somewhere else. That's what I've done my entire radio career. I got into radio because, I thought it'd be a good way to meet girls, which hasn't worked out for me yet. And I also thought if I could make just one person smile during a broadcast, then I did something good. And I'd like to think a lot more than one person ends up smiling when listening to The Rich Stevens Show. That's what it's all about for me. A sad story at Bradley International Airport, which I've been to numerous times. When my mom had her house in Vermont, I would fly into Bradley. It's it's near Hartford in Connecticut. So yesterday morning, they had a vintage World War II plane. It was a B-17 bomber. 13 people were aboard, all part of a week-long show of vintage aircraft. Now, the plane reported trouble shortly after it took off and tried to return to the airport, but went down at the end of a runway and slid off. Now, they haven't released the exact death toll because they haven't been able to identify all the victims, but we do know there were 13 people on board, plus crew. And this is one of those unfortunate, very, very sad stories. But all these air shows, there was an air show in Fort Lauderdale, I think it was maybe 3-4 years ago. Actually, it's probably more than that. The last time I did a live broadcast from there, and they had these, I forgot what country they were from, but they had these paratroopers jumping out of planes. And this reminded me of my dad. Unfortunately, I was 10 when my dad passed away, but he was a captain of paratroopers in World War II, and I would have loved to hear some of these stories, because I've heard other people tell the stories where you jump out most of the time in total darkness. You have no idea where you are or where you're going to end up. So they had this, for some reason I want to say Swedish or Scandinavian, they had these paratroopers that landed on the beach right next to where we were broadcasting from. And the setup for the broadcast was literally right on the sand on the beach. Anyway, two of them totally missed their target and ended up having a bad jump, or bad ending anyway, going into a tree, one of them, and had to be taken to the hospital. And you just have to wonder that when they do these air shows, like this particular one, and they go up on a World War II era B-17 bomber, which sounds cool, except that scares the hell out of me. It's kind of like when Boeing, I don't have anything against Boeing, but when Boeing, imagine this, when Boeing makes a new aircraft, like they just completed making this huge, it's like a building, it's tremendous. I don't even remember what it was called. But imagine you're the head of the project making this particular aircraft. Well, the next step after it's all built is somebody's got to fly it across the country. In this particular case, I heard about this story a couple weeks ago. The head guy, the one, I guess you could say, I don't know if you'd call him a foreman or the designer or whatever, but the head guy on this project said, I will fly it across the country. Now, there's no guarantee that this is going to be 100% safe at all. So can you imagine having that job to be the one that, takes this thing across the country? To me, it sounds really dangerous. But then again, if you think about it, anything could happen. God forbid it ever happens to you or me on a plane, but it's just one of those things. And it reminded me that there are so many crazy jobs in this world. But that would have to be at the top of the list of one of the craziest, being the first one to fly a plane the size of a building across the country, 3,000 miles. There's nobody else on the plane. It's just you and the plane. That's not for me, nor will it ever be. Listen, I appreciate you listening. Have a great Thursday. I'm out of here. You're listening